All right, all right. Welcome to Geopolitics and Conflict Breaking News. What's going on, Elizabeth?
Well, so this actually happened a little while ago, but it's really important. And that is that Hillary Clinton weighed in on cryptocurrencies and that they might destabilize nations.
Oh,
Mm,
is she qualified to talk about cryptocurrency in the
uh,
first place? That's just a basic question.
and I think the answer to that is
Yeah,
no. And I think that I don't know that anyone maybe would argue that she's the right source to go
to
to
the
for that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
information, especially coming from someone who couldn't even really manage their emails.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
what strikes me the most about that is the statement, and I watched a recording about all that when she stated, and I think there was a quote for that. I'm gonna share it with that. It says, "This will consider to be the more destabilizing to other countries." I was
mhm,
like, hold on a second, hold on a second. How all of a sudden a cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, whatever that is going to become a destabilizing to a country when you couldn't manage, for example, what took place in Libya, what
right,
took place in Yemen, what
right.
took place in other parts of the world. And second, who are you to be talking about this when, to me, it was like a straightforward message to Wall Street that I am going
Mhm.
to support you because here is what our viewers need to know, and here is what you need to know. Uh, Wall Street received gave donations to Hillary Clinton when she was running for president.
Absolutely. And
So,
she has very, very strong ties. I'd also like to bring up the Ghislaine Maxwell trial that's coming up right now, and the Clintons have been brought up
of
uh,
course,
multiple times in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. So if you guys are not paying attention to that trial, please take a look at it. I don't know over the course of the trial what is going to be shown or not that we know or don't know, but I think the attention and the eyes really deserve to be on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
yeah, because she had access to a lot of stuff. And yes, I did read somewhere about the involvement of the Clintons involved in that. So
Yes.
the Clinton that is. So yeah, it's just to go back to this point here, as far as her stating that it will destabilize countries. Well, wait a minute. This one has to do with, let's say it's straightforward for what it is. It has to do with the U.S. government concern, Wall Street, of course, but U.S.
Yeah.
government also concerned about losing the dollar status around the world because the world has been fed up with it,
Yes.
especially when it comes down to sanctions. Because everything, as you know, everything is sanctioned in US dollar per se. So
Absolutely.
the world starts to think in terms of, and I could see China doing this already because I wrote some articles about this a couple of years ago that I see just in matter of time, China's going to figure out a way of how to sort of get away from this strangulation of the US financial dominance.
Yes. And something that you brought up yesterday during our live stream is that now the oil exchange, was it between Iran and China, was not done in US dollars.
That's correct, because those transactions now, because they figure countries are moving slowly little by little. First, you take Russia and China, they decided to
Mm.
sort of drop the dollar slow, one step at a time. If you notice, China does not buy US debt anymore.
That's absolutely true. And
So,
I think that deserves a lot of attention.
exactly, because who's carrying our debt besides Japan and Ireland is
Mhm.
China, about
Right.
1.7, if I'm not mistaken, $1.7 trillion. So
Mhm.
that's just the other problem is with us here in the US when it comes down to fiscal policies. How much money did we print in the last year alone?
Right.
Almost 40%
Mhm.
of the money that's been printed since the
Right.
beginning of America. So
Right. And I think that takes some real gall for Hillary Clinton to say that it's something like cryptocurrency that's destabilizing the US dollar.
yeah.
That seems sort of coming back to that also. I want to point out that she didn't. So what I think she's really speaking to is
Hmm.
Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are actually two entirely different assets. There are so many cryptocurrencies. I don't know, thousands of cryptocurrencies. Some of them are worth something and some of them are not. But Bitcoin is in a category of its own, and Bitcoin is something that El Salvador has really started to utilize and implement for transactions, for regular transactions. And what they're doing there, I think it's called Bitcoin Beach over there. But what they're doing is taking El Salvador and giving El Salvador, I think I read earlier that El Salvador is now going to be able to pay off their debts as a country.
Wow. Yeah.
That's powerful, because that means, if that's true, if that's the case, that means they're no longer in the pockets of the big banks.
Yeah. Well, this is why the IMF, I think I read somewhere last week or so, IMF coming up with some policy regarding El Salvador because of the Bitcoin being or as a legal tender right now. But here is the bottom line to the Bitcoin part of it. It's because Bitcoin is decentralized, which means this is where the government is going to lose that control, and they are now willing to do that. So if Hillary Clinton is coming and speaking of the that's going to create dangers for other countries and national security and all that, that's nonsense. Because who's benefiting from that? It's Wall Street, basically.
Absolutely.
And most Americans do not understand this dynamics of how much Wall Street controls domestic policies, or even foreign policies for that matter, through certain ways of it's just this dark money behind the scenes. Bitcoin provide that independence from the government. So why should we have the government control our finances? And that's basically what Hillary wanted to advocate for, is to ensure the continuation of the government controlling our finances.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'd like to play a little bit of this clip. And, we've been talking about, my sort of transitioning into showing you guys what's actually happening in a linguistic perspective, in a sort of covert or conversational hypnosis way, because most of you can see that that there's psychological issues, psychological warfare that's really going on right now. And it's coming from all directions. And so this is to sort of teach you a little bit of how to look at what politicians, speech writers are actually doing when they're speaking. So I want to show you a clip of her talking about cryptocurrency. And what she does here is something called a complex equivalence. A complex equivalence is when you take something and you build up a case for it, right? So in this case, she talks about the Kremlin, she talks about disinformation, misinformation, and she talks about all these things that are negative in the buildup that she's created. And then she talks about cryptocurrencies. And so what happens is your mind is now primed to look at something like it's negative, because we look at the Kremlin as a negative thing, we look at misinformation as a negative thing. And so even if you're just looking at linguistically what's happening, it's taking all of these negative things, stringing them together, and then feeding your mind cryptocurrency.
Wow, that's an interesting concept. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I want to hear that.
And sorry, guys, I lost the light. The light turned off, and so sorry if I'm in shadow, but that's why.
I still can see you. Elizabeth.
Good. Okay, let's see. Where is she at? All right, there she is. All right, so listen for a few seconds and see if you can see what I talked about.
That nation states have got to pay greater attention to is the rise of these asymmetric power centers. Some of them operate either with the approval or even in full cooperation with state actors, like you see with the Kremlin.
There's the Kremlin.
Some of them are independent, but we're going to be facing increasing challenges. The way that technology has developed, the incredible use of disinformation in the political sphere and the economic sphere.
There's
is only
incredible
going to
use
get
of
worse.
disinformation.
The
It's
rise
only
of
going to get
artificial
worse.
Intelligence is going to threaten nation states, going to threaten multinational.
I want to point out this really quickly because the use of AI is something that we've discussed. That it is fairly common knowledge, I think, at this point, that China has surpassed the US in AI ability. And so we're seeing now the conversation of AI is a very bad thing, and AI is going to, destroy our nation state. So let's keep going.
Corporations. And then one more area that I hope nation states start paying greater attention to is the rise of cryptocurrency.
There it is.
Because what looks like a very interesting and somewhat exotic effort to literally mine new coins in order to trade with them has the potential for undermining currencies, for undermining the role of the dollar as the reserve currency, for destabilizing nations, perhaps starting with small ones, but going much larger.
Okay. So you see how that was, let's remove her.
There we go.
There we go. So you see how what she did is she strung all of these very negative in her eyes things together, and then positioned cryptocurrencies as the next thing in the set of negative things. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to, and we're not going to replay it, but if you want to, I'll put this on my Twitter so you guys can check it out, is when she's talking about something that she seems to know a lot about, there's no space between her words. But when she starts talking about cryptocurrencies, there's all of a sudden there's a space between every sentence. Because she does not know what she's talking about, and anybody who actually really understands cryptocurrency, I think, can see that, and specifically Bitcoin and the situation with the cryptocurrencies. But the fact that it differs from the baseline, and a baseline is how somebody sort of answers a question when they're calm, when they know what they're talking about, when sort of how they naturally are, versus the spaces between what she's saying, which indicate that there is not the same confidence level in what she's saying with cryptocurrencies. And if somebody doesn't have a high level of confidence in the understanding of, let's say, cryptocurrencies, why are they speaking on it?
Exactly. And that was like my first initial when I came across this info this morning. And I was like, wait a minute, why is she talking about this? Why do people that they do not know about certain areas end up being the experts? It's kind of like, I was shocked. But when I read the statement for her saying that it will destabilize other nations, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? It's because the bottom line to it is, we are witnessing, as we always say, the shift in the geopolitical landscape, and what comes with it is the U.S. financial dominance, starting with the Bretton Woods system that was established back after World War II. That one also is coming to an end, and that's Wall Street usually feeds on how the spending is always increased. I remember during the GFC, the global financial crisis of 2008. I remember how the government built out the big corporations for $780 billion. Where that money came from? Taxpayers' money. and guess what, Elizabeth? That money has never been paid back.
Oh, and it never will be.
Yeah. So shame on a government to go ahead. And you know what I found out? I found that at the end of that year, 2008, some CEOs from those companies that's been bailed out received some Christmas bonuses.
Very large ones, I assume, probably in the millions of dollars.
Shame on them, because that money belongs to the hardworking Americans.
Yes.
Shame on them. So I didn't quite understand, what is she talking about, this destabilizing other countries, when in reality crypto, or the Bitcoin that is going to provide decentralized platform by which people can manage their own finances away from the government.
And there are people, we interviewed Peter Schiff, and Richard Turn actually said a similar thing, is that, you can't really buy anything with Bitcoin right now. And, I think in places like El Salvador, we're really seeing that change. But if for nothing else, China has tried to shut Bitcoin down. Now Hillary Clinton is talking about, cryptos are,
yeah, you're right,
they're going to destabilize. So a lot of countries have tried to shut Bitcoin specifically down, and it doesn't matter. It's still going through the roof.
It won't. This morning I just checked it. It was about 57,000. So as a matter of fact, it was an article, and we're going to post it for our viewers at the bottom of the description. I wrote an article on our blog last time in which I disclosed the information about some big banks here in the US, including JP Morgan, rather. Yeah. This stated, and I have it, this stated that there is a possibility that Bitcoin could reach about $100,000.
And I think a lot of people are saying that's possible. And I think the real driver behind people purchasing Bitcoin, people buying into Bitcoin, is that people don't trust the US dollar anymore. No. And if you look at, like you brought up earlier, 40% of all US dollars have been printed in the last year, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
The amount of money we printed, and yet most Americans have no idea that money is what weakens the currency itself. And we're going to have to pay it back one way or another. If not us, our children. If not our children, their children. And it's not fair to the next generation.
And I think we're seeing that across the globe right now, is that ultimately there's just a lack of trust in the US dollar overall. When we look at inflation, this was hilarious. So Jerome Powell, I think at first said, there's not really inflation. And then once it was undeniable that there was inflation, he said, inflation's transitory. But then it was transitory for month after month after month. And all of a sudden now he's saying, well, maybe it's time to retire the word transitory.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it also takes credibility away from experts, because this is Jerome Powell. How could he be? I mean, bold-faced lying, right? People knew that inflation wasn't transitory. The people who were the uneducated people in this space, go to Twitter, go to financial Twitter, and check out what the regular people there are saying. And they could predict that inflation wasn't transitory. How come Jerome Powell couldn't? And it's not that he couldn't. I think it's that it was actively misinformation, I think.
Exactly. And speaking of the Fed, don't even get me started on that. Most Americans do not understand that the Feds are not part of the government. It's a banking, it's a financial cartel, the equivalency of OPEC, except they don't want it on the finances. There was one great book about the Jekyll Island, where the meeting was taken of how to manage the finances. And this is what the Bitcoin is a threat to that establishment. That's the bottom line to it. That's why Hillary Clinton came up with this, because of the Wall Street is kind of like they're giving money to the Clinton Foundation. And who is she to be talking about that in the first place? No.
Honestly, I think it's out of her.
No. Yeah, she just shot herself in the foot with the credibility. To me, it's common sense. If you don't know about a topic that you don't have an in-depth understanding, don't get involved in that. Don't try to show yourself as being this, well-rounded politicians, when in reality, you caused more problems than you solved them. So here is what I wanted to mention to our viewers, since we are talking here, what I found very interesting. And what I found interesting is that Jack Dorsey announced.
Yeah.
You saw that tweet that came out, and I tweeted it earlier this morning. Jack Dorsey now is going to step away from Twitter and move into the cryptocurrency.
Yes.
That tells me right there, he's seeing something average people are not.
Mm-hmm.
So I trust the guy's judgment. And I read up about his life. I was very, very, if I may, if you allow me to share one thing with you and our viewers about, how Jack Dorsey sort of managed his daily life. Guess what he starts his day with?
Doesn't he start out with an ice bath? Doesn't he do the Wim Hof ice bath?
It starts with meditation.
Walking
commute. He walks to work, short workouts, sauna and ice baths, near infrareds, cold showers, 1 meal a day, weekends fasting, and sleep monitoring. So that's beside the point. That's his private life, and I respect him for that. That's his private life. But the fact that he is thinking in terms of now moving his attention all the way to cryptocurrency, it tells me where things are moving. And for Clinton to come up and say this, it just didn't make any sense.
Well, it's part of the old narrative, right? It's part of the old legacy media, legacy narrative that people don't trust or believe anymore.
Yeah.
And politicians can keep saying this stuff all they want, but people aren't buying it anymore.
That's it. Yeah. And that's a good, you explained that one. I know you and Ross, just for our viewers to know, you're going to be doing more of those with Ross, since both of you, that's you guys, your specialty and all that.
It is our specialty.
And that will be very useful for our viewers to learn, me included, because I will be watching like all of them. I'll be watching. It's just I have for a sort of seats up front to watching that stuff. So because I want to learn on that stuff. Yeah, it will be very learning. So for them to acquire the knowledge of how to start to read when politicians are talking.
Because you're right, people have like a gut feeling or an intuitive feeling that something isn't right. So you may understand that you have this feeling, but if you don't understand what it is, you can talk yourself out of it. You can say, oh, it's just, I don't know. It just might be something that I think or notice. But this will allow you to sort of be able to pinpoint, oh, this is exactly what they're doing. I watched, we're on Twitter. I'm Alchemy of E, and David is at Dwalaloo. Follow us, tweet at us, interact with us. A guy earlier sent me an article from one of his friends on the nuclear situation that's happening.
I saw that. I got it too. I replied by thanking him for that, and I'm gonna look into that and read through that, because that's how we raise awareness among the masses. If we don't create that community where we can exchange information, when we can, that's how we learn. Otherwise, if we count on the government to tell us what's good for us, we'll end up nowhere. And this is, by the way, just to mention to our viewers, Elizabeth, we're going to be doing a presentation for our viewers about this topic of the finances regarding the inevitable death of the US dollar. So I look forward to that on Friday.
Yes, and so that's for our members. Check it out, our membership at geopoliticscom. We're actually going to be expanding that membership to some more stuff. I was looking. I follow Elon Musk. Think what you want of him, but he's an interesting guy. And I looked at his response to a tweet that somebody had posted, and the tweet said, why are we acting like hypnosis isn't a real thing and isn't being used by basically, every politician and every news media source? Why are we acting like that's not real? And I think that's why it's really important that we do this, because it is real.
Yeah, and I'm sure our viewers will benefit from yours and Ross's knowledge regarding this field, because you guys spend a lot of time and you acquired the necessary certification for it and knowledge. You're not talking from just reading a book or two. We're talking about training that you guys went through. So, and we're gonna be, you guys gonna be talking. Yes,
this has been my whole life. I started in heavy training in this when I was 11. If you can believe that. I mean, it's been my whole life.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we wanted also to mention that tomorrow we're going to be releasing the video that we had with our guest, Dr. Hammond. We're going to disclose the name now because we got the word that you're going to be releasing the video tomorrow. So look forward to that interview, guys. It's a very insightful. I can't stress enough. Watch it to the end. You will not waste your time. Take my word for it. So, and we look forward also to Friday, our regular live stream. Elizabeth's gonna post the topic tomorrow morning, and we look forward to that. But of course, don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Me at the Walalu and Elizabeth at Alchemy of E. So make sure you guys follow us on those. Remember to follow us also on TikTok and Instagram, and we are working on, what's the other website we're gonna working on?
We're working on a locals page.
The locals.
We have one right now. If you guys want to go and check it out, go check it out. There's nothing on there yet, but we're working with locals and Rumble. So so if you guys want to follow us on locals and Rumble, check it out. They're censorship-free platforms, and I think there's a lot of value in that. So we might at some point, the stuff that we can't really say here, we say on our membership. So if you really want some of the in-depth stuff we do, it really is on our membership at geopoliticsandconflict.com. But we might do some of that on Rumble and locals in the future too.
Exactly. And I also wanted just to stress one more point for our viewers. We started today, the first time we did the Q&A session. That is in addition to what we do on Fridays. We're going to be doing that on a regular basis every Wednesday. You will be posting about it, Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
You're going to be posting before it so people will know the timing. And that's when we focus the entire hour on answering questions from. I truly enjoyed the session today. It was very interactive. I mean, the nature of the questions, that just tells me the in-depth, the intellectuals that our viewers display, and also the civil discord. It was really very in a respectful manner. And it just, I could have lost for the next 2 hours or so, but we had other things to do.
Well, it was really great, and we'll do it again next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. It's -6 GMT, I think.
That's correct. Yeah. You're correct.
But I'll post it so you guys will be able to see when it'll be. But yeah, it was really wonderful talking to you guys. And for the most part, the chats are always good. There's a troll every so often.
Part of it.
That's part of the deal.
Exactly.
But, I also noticed, and I want to thank you guys for sticking up for us in the chats when there is a troll, because every time, David, because I watch the chats, I can't really watch the chats while we're doing that, while I'm speaking, but when you guys are speaking, I watch the chats, and some people always stand up for us in the chats. So I wanted to thank you guys. I see that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. And also want to thank them for their super stickers, for those who posted super stickers for us. We thank you so much for that. Your support means a lot to us. We want you to know, and we do not take it for granted. So to those who have not subscribed yet, please do so right now. So anything to add, Elizabeth, before we leave?
That's it.
No, okay. Well, as always, guys, we look forward to seeing you live stream on Friday at 1100 hours. Tomorrow, remember to watch the video where we had the interview with Dr. Hammond. Very insightful. And as always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.